So I'm Tim Titus, Chief Technical Officer and founder of PathSolutions. I've been a network engineer for over 30 years, so I've encountered just about all of the weirdness that can occur, but I'll tell you, this year, the weirdness has gone through the roof. So having a large portion of folks stuck working at home is a brand new challenge for a lot of folks. Really, IT shops are stuck in one of three different categories. Their mandate is that they say, gee, people are working at home, and if they have problems, it's up to them to solve it. That's really a small group. The largest group, though, is you need to help these people out. You need to offer some assistance because end users who are finance or sales, they don't know how to troubleshoot wireless. They don't know how to troubleshoot a LAN problem, an ISP problem, a firewall problem, all of the different issues that can occur in their home environment. And in addition, these home environments are being taxed far more than they've ever been taxed before, because you might have two kids that are all doing schooling at home at the same time. Somebody's watching Netflix in another room. A phone call comes in over VoIP and somebody's trying to do another meeting. It doesn't work. So this is kind of the largest group of folks, is help these people out, find some way of assisting them so that they can be productive in their work environment. Now, the third group is that you have organizations that say, yeah, we have people that we're going to fully support and take over their network, and they end up shipping a new firewall to the person, they ship an access point to the person and say, we're just going to manage your network remotely, and we're going to give you the equipment to do it. So in general terms, you need to do something to support these folks. And so that's where a lot of IT folks are stuck. So we figure, let's go through this scenario and look at a sample problem that users might have. So you have a CFO who's working at home. They have a poor quality Zoom team meeting. Okay, how do you help them out? There's really, the first thing you need to do is scope the problem. You have the internet component, you have the Zoom team cloud server component, you have your headquarters component, and then you have the user's home office component. In that home office, you have some unknown brand of firewall. Maybe it's some little $29 firewall. You have some access point of unknown manufacturer, and then you have the user's laptop. Problems can abound because you can have issues with wireless signal strength, wireless channel contention in the neighborhood, cabling faults in the LAN, underpowered firewalls, overloaded ISP connections, split tunneling issues, all sorts of problems. The issue here is, in order to diagnose these sort of problems, you kind of have to do a site visit. And nobody's doing site visits anymore. It's too expensive. It's also, most people don't want to let you in the house right now. So what do you try and do? Well, if you try and do a remote meeting and the remote meeting can't be established, that means you can't diagnose the problem. So you tell the user, hey, can you open this web page? Can you tell me what you're seeing on the screen? That really doesn't work either. So what we figured we'd do is rapidly get our really smart engineers together and come up with a solution that is automated. What we've done is we've built a single agent that runs on this user's laptop. What it's going to do is it's going to collect information from all of these different elements and say, this is the user's perspective. These are the devices in the LAN. This is the access point, signal strength, and neighborhood channel usage. This is what you're getting off of your firewall, your ISP, all of this information, and then send that data back. Might take a little bit of time if there's packet loss or issues. Send it back to the TotalView server. Once it's on that TotalView server, it sends an email notification to the engineer. What this means is we've now made this process to the point where you tell the user, go run this client. It's going to automatically script all of this information, and you do that when it's convenient for you. I'm going to get notified, like the doctor that gets notified that your lab results are in. I get notified, and I can go and look at all of the information. And I can sit down, and within 5 minutes, I can say, well, your CPU looks good. There's no strange processes here. Your wireless strength is low. I can help you do a wireless map of your house to find out where is signal strength strong and where is it weak. I can also see your neighborhood channel usage. I can see other devices on the LAN and say, you've got 6 different streaming devices on your network? That's odd. Your firewall's adding 20 milliseconds of latency. You're also only getting 4.2 megs of upload. Is that expected with your service, with your ISP? So all of this information automatically collected on the client so that you can go through and spend just a minute or two and say, I have all of the information as if I was there with all of my tools to be able to render a decision. So the test types that we have are speed tests, link troubleshooting tests, call simulation tests, process lists. It's really 22 different types of tests that you can run to determine what is on the user's LAN, what is the IP configuration, what's the routing table, trace route information, all of these tests so that you can execute them and then see, as if I was on that computer, here's what's going on. So that means that all of these problems can be rapidly troubleshot. It's not going to take your time. You don't have to schedule a meeting with the user. You just tell them, run the client. It's going to do all the tests, collect the data, and I'll be notified and can review the results and say, I found the problem. So that's really the intent, is get all of this information automatically collected so that you can diagnose problems remotely and you don't have to be there. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions.
So does this mean the agent is running at specific intervals, like so once a day, or how often would you want to test an endpoint?
So this can be done either ad hoc as necessary, or you can actually script it to say, I want to run this test on an hourly basis. I want to run this test every 15 minutes. So you can do interval tests, or you can do a one-time ad hoc troubleshoot.
On the topic of one-time ad hoc troubleshoots, let's say we don't control the endpoint. Situation where you're dealing with an MSP, etc. Is the agent available as a non-installable one-off run package?
I think you're asking about licensing. Is that more the question you're asking?
No, not so much licensing. The licensing's kind of separate, but let's say I don't have admin rights on this user's workstation, but I still want them to be able to go grab the package and run it once and let me see what's going on without having to necessarily have a fully intrusive install. Does it have that kind of flexibility?
So I'll say yes and no. The yes is it's a single executable, so it doesn't actually need to be installed at all. The no part is it does need local admin rights to be able to run, because some of the things we're doing are we're transmitting with the kernel so that we have timing done correctly. So it does need those local admin rights to be able to collect all of this information.
Okay, so would it run, well, let's go back a step and say the user doesn't have admin rights. It's a tightly controlled environment. How does that work?
So in that case, they're not going to be able to run the agent because it's not going to be able to get the information collected off of the machine due to security rights. We do have a feature that is using WebRTC. And what WebRTC is that this uses the browser's real-time communication, and you can have this work in really any WebRTC browser, basically any modern browser, Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Safari, any of these browsers that support WebRTC, and we can use that as a troubleshooting agent. It has a lot less information that than we can collect off of our executable agent, but it still will be able to tell you latency, jitter, loss, frames per second, throughput, all of that type of information.
Okay, that's cool. So if the executable starts running and stays running under admin privileges, you can leave it there and tell it to run every so often. So an administrator could install it and then have it sit there doing its thing in the background too.
Correct. So it's really intended for either of those use cases, because there are situations where somebody's going to say, hey, give me a level 1 diagnostic of your environment, and it's going to go through and say, hey, your routing table looks good, all this looks good, except we found the problem over here based upon an ARP cache problem. So we're able to have all of that done as a one-shot, or we're going to catch this problem in the act. Let's do tests every 15 minutes and see what happens. And gee, everything's perfect up until one 15-minute test where it starts going really bad. what we can do is flag the test to say, when the tests go bad, these are going to be marked as failed tests, and they're failed because of a low MOS score or packet loss is too high. You can set your rules appropriately. And when those tests go back, you're going to get an alert saying, hey, a failed test just occurred with this user. And by the way, what happened is their path changed. And so you have an ISP routing problem that you can detect and say, yeah, this is what caused that problem.
Okay, and that checks both stacks, V4 and V6?
It is V4 only. It does not do V6 yet. We figured we wanted to rush this, get this out to a lot of folks because there's such a need right now. And we figured let's focus on V4 and get it done.
Okay, that's just a consideration because I've noticed with my customers, 70% of their traffic is running V6. And so you're kind of going, all right, well, we got to make sure we capture all of this.
What operating systems does the agent support?
So any Windows operating system for the executable, and for WebRTC is, again, any modern browser. So you can run that on a Chromebook, MacBook, kind of a phone even, as long as it supports WebRTC.
Are you checking as one of your methods of troubleshooting? Are you checking the operating system, not even the operating system version, but like the drivers on Windows? Just thinking about it from a wireless perspective, we've often seen where that can be a big problem because they're not often updated.
So we don't have a specific test that will go fetch those drivers, but because you can do that via PowerShell or do that via Windows command line, you could put that in to say, go get me this information on that machine.
Okay, and then the next question I had with that in mind, we have these problems all the time where, you know, it's an agent, it's either running when you need to schedule something or, like you said, you can set it up every 5, 10, 15 minutes. What if I'm the user at home and I know I'm having a problem? Is there some way that it's running and I just hit a button, say like start recording, send this to the dashboard, send this to my admin?
Yep.
I'm having a problem right here and now.
Yep. You're working with the same playbook we were, is
Okay.
the ability to have I'm having a problem, run this special set of tests now, and it will go through that script to say, hey, this is priority. We need to know what's going on right now with additional information collection.
Okay.
Hit the red button.
Nice.
And just to be clear, that's an end user feature. If they're experiencing problems, they can kick off those tests?
Yes.
Is there any kind of impact on the endpoint? I'm thinking for the executable when it's running through the battery of tests.
Generally, no. So the first thing is our agent is all coded in C and C++, so it's very tightly affined with the processor. It's not using a fatter language, I guess. So it's going to be efficient with its resource utilization on the computer. The only thing that we have noticed is if you are running this on a virtual machine, latency might be actually latency usually isn't affected. It's jitter, is that you can have some jitter swings in some of the tests if you're running that on a virtual machine, because that machine is physically, the operating system's being time sliced with other physical machines or other virtual machines on the physical hardware. So we've seen some anomalies there, but in general, no other performance problems.
Tim, question regarding the communications between the executable and the reporting system. I'm assuming it's because you said you're using WebRTC that you have a secured communications channel so that the details behind these reports are secured from the machine that you're analyzing back to the console?
Yeah, so this is all HTTPS, TLS 1.2. Yeah, I think in light of some of the more recent news articles, yeah, having encryption and proper strong encryption of making sure that this data doesn't get in the wrong hands is important.
How high does it scale in terms of being able to, like how many end users or client devices can this support?
So effectively, we can support up to 200,000 endpoint, 200,000 clients. There's really, and in one sense, it can go beyond that, but I'll admit we haven't done testing beyond that. And so if you have a larger deployment than that, we can talk to you and work through a tiered deployment. But generally, 200,000 is going to be enough where you can support a large number of users.
Now, if you're scaling in a different way, let's say you're a managed service provider, how well does this work if you're breaking it out into multiple companies and wanting to keep all the reporting separate?
So right now the reporting, and that's something I'll show you on the second video, the reporting does not group by company. So you're not going to have that. But if you, let's say, you were working with a customer doing some one-off tests, when that customer has an issue, you're going to get notified of that issue and you can go right into their test. So you're working with that. It's just not compartmentalized by customer.
Are there ways to sort of slice and dice and group the results so that you could look for patterns to maybe shorten that troubleshooting window? Like, oh, you're coming in on this version of Windows OS, so we know that probably means we should look at XYZ first, or you've got this AP and we know that means probably XYZ, or you're coming from this particular region where we've been seeing trouble with the local ISP, et cetera.
Drew, you are showing yourself to be a very smart man. We don't have that reporting yet, but we have the data. What we figured we'd focus on first, and this is a race to get the product released because there's such a need for this right now, of solve the problem. I think you've seen, we've all seen a lot of companies out there that will do these grandiose, maybe perhaps Thousand Eyes type of high level overview of saying, here's what the ISPs are doing, here's what's happening there. The problem is what do you do with the user that still says, I can't connect and I'm sitting in my house and I don't know what the problem is? And so we figured that's the problem that we uniquely can address, and collect that data from the user's perspective and focus on getting resolution. The next step for us would be take that same data and merge the test data to say, okay, these are the commonalities, these are the common ISPs that are having issues, and do that.
How granular are you looking at taking that, in the sense that, I don't know, let's say there's a flaw in a Ubiquiti router and we're only seeing these problems on users who are using this model of Ubiquiti router on this firmware?
So right now with the tests, we're going to be able to say you're getting 30 milliseconds of jitter going through this firewall, and it seems to be a constant 32 milliseconds, or this 32 milliseconds happens sporadically throughout the day. So you end up getting that jitter signature. We can then tell you, okay, this user also, that firewall is Ubiquiti, so we can identify the manufacturer. So all of that data comes back so that you can say Ubiquiti and it is a jitter problem. And so you have that correlation, but we're not boiling that up to saying, okay, here is the jitter problem for all of the people that have a Ubiquiti firewall. So we're not doing that level. It's really focused on individual user troubleshooting right now, but collecting the data so that we can eventually do that next step.
So for now, it'll give us the breadcrumbs, but we still have to find the gingerbread house.
I suppose that's a way of saying it, yeah.
Got it.
And I'm curious if you could put together a stat on how many problems can be solved by just turning everything off and back on again.
So what I'll tell you is we've been working with a lot of our customers, and it's been a very iterative process of using this with our customers. One of the big problems is split tunneling. It's just not being configured properly. People will say, oh, gee, I got split tunneling working, and it's like, no, it's not. You're still going hairpinning through the firewall, and that's adding to your latency, and that's causing screen artifacts on your videos. So that's one of the big problems. Another one of the big problems is the wireless, is that it's a bit of the Wild West for wireless environments in users' homes. And if you have somebody in an apartment, you're going to have channel contention. You're going to have a whole bunch of people sitting on that same channel. And it's like, well, why is my wireless so bad? And it's like, because everybody's using channel 3 and nobody's using channel 6. Okay, guess what? You're going to have a wonderful day if you just change to using channel 6. Also, signal strength. People are sitting there saying, gee, I don't realize that I'm dropping a ton of packets due to a signal strength problem. This tool can be used to map your home network to find out what is your signal strength map, to say, gee, I didn't realize that sitting here in the living room, I have a really bad signal strength, and they didn't realize it's due to a concrete wall that they have that's part of the structure of their house.
So could you elaborate, just because I'm, now you hit my nerd knobs. What are you using to get the wireless information out of the client so that you can map it? Because I mean, typically, you know, that's a site survey kind of thing. You're talking about specialized equipment and a lot of effort.
Here's a sample, and I'm going to say I can't demo this for you when I get to the second segment because I have to disconnect and walk around my backyard. But here's an example of that. So what I did with this is I did a wireless test, and it's going to track CPU, track RAM, track network I/O. But really, the important part is the signal strength. And so I was able to take this, and from my desk, it kind of had a little bit of a yellow-green kind of signal strength. I was able to turn around and actually get within 5 feet of my access point, and signal strength got to be fantastic. Then I turned around and said, okay, let me walk into my backyard and walk to the corner of my yard, and it got yellow, it got red, it got black to the point where it says there is no signal here. And so I'm able to walk around, and every second it updates this. So I can just walk around, turn around, face different directions, and find out what is the result second by second.
And when you say map, you're not actually using like if you had a floor map, you're mostly just having the user say, okay, where are you standing when you take that measurement, so they can know, like, okay, I'm in my living room on the sofa, my signal strength is, you know, -55. That's really good.
We kind of figured these users aren't going to go out. I mean, who has a Vizio map of their home environment? Okay, yeah, there's a bunch of us on this call who can say yes, they do, because we've used it for furniture mapping and moving things around and cable runs. But we're the crazies. But who as far as our customers are going to have a Vizio map that they can upload? We just figured that wasn't really going to happen. So having something that updates second by second so that they can walk around and say, wow, I didn't realize it was this bad in this location. But if I move 5 feet to the left, it gets better. If I move 10 feet to the left, then it gets even better than that. If I'm sitting in the garage, it's terrible. And so they start learning about where is it in their house that they can have a good signal versus a poor signal.
Okay, no, and it's still better than what they had before, so that's understandable.
Which is mostly nothing. I'll admit to you, the Windows signal strength will show you 100% signal strength. Actually, so the Windows measurement is this bottom signal quality, and so they will actually show 100% signal strength even when it's degraded to the point where your RSSI is saying, yeah, you're not going to be able to do much with this.